All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to our weekly podcast known as This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the goings on in the world of pop culture in the past said week. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And we try to bring you up to speed, as I said, with pop culture, whether we're talking about local news, sports, film and TV, trailers, and the like. We try to bring you up to speed so that way you are not left in the wind. And of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about the said topics this week. So without further ado, I want to welcome my co-host, my partner in crime, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Hope you've had a lovely weekend. It's been a little bit rainy here on the East Coast. We had some thunderstorm warning, so shouts to everybody that was is going through stuff. But let's get this show on the road.
Let's get this show on the road indeed. And as you can see in the title there, apologies for the late delay today. There were some last minute things that we wanted to also include in today's show, as they were things that happened within the past said 24 hours, and we would be remiss not to add them. But as you can see in the title, we will be discussing some of the local stores that have been closing for a well-known pharmacy chain. But there are a couple of other things that went down as well this week, whether we're talking about film and TV news, whether we're talking about sports, whether we're talking about things, just general news, just daily news that have been making the circuit, as well as some unfortunate passings that happened this week as well. So without further ado, Spills, shall we dive in?
Let's get it.
All right, cool. So we will, in fact, get it. So getting into the first topic that we're going to talk about today, and that is centered around our daily news roundup regarding a certain airline that has changed its policy, unfortunately, and that's, of course, with Southwest Airlines with their new baggage policy. Let's see if I can get that up here for you guys. Yep. All right. So this past week, it was announced, or I should say, it became official as of Wednesday that Southwest Airlines would, in fact, be changing their baggage policy, or I should say, implementing their new baggage policy, which would no longer allow passengers to have free checked bags, but will instead charge $35 for the first checked bag and $45 for the second checked bag. Anyone who knows Southwest, this is a major bummer, because it is one of the primary things that allows it to distinguish itself from other airlines. So Spills, what are your thoughts on this new policy? And I don't know if we really talked about this in depth, but do you travel Southwest a lot?
Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to first give a shout out to my professor from college, Professor Garrett. She was a Southwest disciple. We would go to Orlando every year when I was at UDC on the Honda Campus All Star Challenge, and she would only fly Southwest. So we would go down there to Orlando. She said, "Listen, Southwest take care of you because you don't have to pay for no bags." And Shorty had bags tall as me, ladies and gentlemen. So I just definitely, this is terrible. I feel like, if you know for something, you got to do it. Like Mariah Carey, she sing the song every year. Christmas come around, Mariah sing the song for us. She find new ways to show us because she knows that's what the people want. Southwest, the people want to not pay for bags. We deal with enough things in our life. Things are getting smaller. One time, I got a hash brown at a place. It used to be 9. Now it was 6, but it was 10 cents cheaper. And the guy was like, "It's cheaper." I was like, "No, you took 3 of them from me, sir. That's not good math." So, no, I don't agree with this at all, ladies and gentlemen. How do you feel, Brandon?
So I'll say this, Spills. First and foremost, let me just say that this sucks because, like, as you will know, friends of mine, family know that I travel Southwest a lot, and one of the things that is the the big point of it is that you are able to bring on those free check bags, and so before this policy change, I would say Southwest, as I said, was able to distinguish itself from other airline competitors. And now, for the sake of milking more money out of their consumers, they may potentially destroy one of the very things that allows it to perhaps make, get selected by consumers over other airlines. Now they're just a part of the pack and not really, distinguishing themselves or separating themselves or giving themselves a competitive edge. But I will say this: there are a couple of caveats, so I do want to highlight that for you guys. According to the story, and this is a shout out to ABC News, there are a couple of caveats that they were able to break down in terms of being able to get free check back. So I'll go over them now. Southwest customers will still be able to have free check bags if they are preferred members of the airline's Rapid Rewards A-list program, if they're traveling on Business Select or Choice Extra classes. And also, they'll have the ability to do that to get that free check bag if they are A-list member and Rapid Rewards credit card members as well. So, I mean, yeah, technically they are still allowing it, but you have to do extra steps in order to be able to accomplish that versus it just being just a broad feature of the airline. So, according to the story with Good Morning America, they had discussed that Southwest, I guess, had been able to determine that they were losing out on over $1 billion worth of revenue by not doing this. But I would argue that, yeah, while you may be losing out on $1 billion, is it really going to make the difference if you don't really have anything to distinguish yourselves from any of your fellow competitors? So yeah, absolute bummer. I'm gonna have to now reassess what airlines I typically, travel, because Southwest was my airline, and now, without that, I can't really distinguish all that much more that really makes it that much better than any other airline. Don't get me wrong, there are a couple of out there that, they nickel and dime you on every single thing, and you guys know
Oh,
who you
speaking of
are.
which, ladies and gentlemen, fly airlines. Do not fly those people. They charge for everything. Oh my gosh.
There are a
The
couple out
worst.
there that nickel and dime you for every little piece of thing. I swear they would charge you if they could for just breathing, folks. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to reassess like which airlines are out there and really try to compare and contrast which is better, because before it was just easy. I was like, okay, I get a free personal item, a free carry on, and you get that free check bag. It's no brainer. Boom, Southwest, easy, decided, done. But now I
Next
have
is the
to,
sodas, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah, now it's gonna have to be a really involved process, unfortunately. But
They're gonna take the sodas next, ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna be terrible.
but yeah.
Oh,
But what about you guys out there? Those of you guys that are frequent travelers, let us know in the comments. What do you guys feel about Southwest now charging for those checked bags? That was such a big, major point of being a consumer with Southwest, of being able to enjoy that feature. But now we will no longer have it now as of Wednesday. And the thing that's really crazy, Spills, is apparently, from what I understand, say if you do like a change of schedule with the flight, and say it happened before Wednesday, and now when you're making that change, it goes into it happens after this Wednesday pass, you're now implementing into the new policy. So maybe you had the old policy before because you were grandfathered before it officially went into effect before Wednesday, but you, for whatever reason, you have to make a schedule change. You now a part of that new policy now if it came after Wednesday, which also sucks. I feel like it should, it should still be able to be grandfathered in if you still initially had that purchase of that ticket before then. So
Southwest is not gonna grandfather bags. They like, no, no. Pay for the bags. They want their money, ladies and gentlemen. And it's like, I get it. The economy is the economy, but
it
you know,
is. But I mean,
Southwest
it's
got his
just
name
business,
on a
though. You
bunch of
want to be able to
arenas and stuff.
separate
They got
yourself.
money.
I'm
They
saying you
got
want to be
money.
able to separate yourselves from your competition, and that was one of the big things that allowed Southwest to do that. But I digress. That's going to do it with our daily news roundup. As I said, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on that, particular topic. But we're now going to move into some somber news, as there were a couple of passings that did happen over this said week. We're going to start first, and as you can see, it was with Peter David, with Peter Kwong, and as well as Loretta Swit. But we want to start first with Peter David. So let me get that up here now. And if you're not, familiar with who Peter David is, a huge figure in the comics, comic book community. Um, when we're talking about Peter David, his legacy speaks for itself. Having huge runs writing on Spider-Man, the Hulk, Aquaman, Young Justice, Spy Boy, Supergirl, Fallen Angel, Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2099, Captain Marvel, and X Factor. He also co-created characters including Miguel O'Hara, the Spider-Man of 2099, Spy Boy, Sax, Violence, Soul Searchers, Maestro, Pantheon, Random, Strong Guy, Genesis, Veil, Mark Hazard, Merc and Justice. He even wrote scores of Star Trek novels, including the New Frontier book series, as well as original novels, the Apropos of Nothing and Nightlife series for TV. So even going even into another medium, he co-created the Nickelodeon sci-fi series Space Cases with Bill Mumy, and was also a writer on Babylon 5, as well as Young Justice and Ben 10. So Peter David is survived by his wife and his four children: Caroline, Helen David, Shauna David, Ariel David, and Guinevere David. He passed away, unfortunately, last Saturday, and this came by word of his widow last Sunday. He was 68 years old. So, Spills, your thoughts on the death of Peter David?
Ladies and gentlemen, I think Peter David, all those great credits that he has, it's just um, as someone, he's a major figure in the early '90s, especially the early '90s of comic books and character creation, and also, taking it to the next level and making characters that were on shows and were like, merchandise, toys. Like I remember I had a Strong Guy and a Random toy. I think I had a Spider-Man 2099. I definitely read all those books. I feel like his touch on the genre was very interesting. Um, he like he's associated with a lot of big artists like Todd McFarlane and Eric Leshner and Leafield, and it's just like just some of the greats of the genre. He will be missed, but just a great writer, and just I feel like low key the theme of today's show is writers, because I mean we've got some great literary works that are coming through on these events we're talking about today.
For sure, for sure. And I'll just say, just to briefly, touch on David is, as I mentioned before, a legendary figure across numerous mediums, whether we're talking about comics, whether we're talking about TV, being able to write stories for certain characters, to be able to have a hand in creating them as well. Just an unprecedented, legacy. Whether we're talking literary with novels and comics, cinematic, because as I mentioned with the character of Spider-Man of 2099, we just had that character feature in the animated Spider-Man films. And a character featured there. And then also even talking about episodic television with animated shows, whether we're talking about Young Justice. I have, a couple of friends who provide the voices on that show, but I enjoy what they have been able to do with that show and the stories that they've been able to tell on that show. And of course, I'd be remiss to not talk about Ben 10 too, of that show's legacy, and growing up with that show as well. So again, uh, um, condolences to friends and family of Peter David, who passed away, as I said, last Saturday. This was via news of his widow, uh, who made the official announcement last Sunday. So moving on from Mr. David, we did have another passing as well. So let me bring him up, and that will be Peter Kwong. Let me see if I can get him up here. There we go. So, of course, for those that are big into John Carpenter, Mr. Kwong, of course, looks very familiar. He was one of the three storms in the cult classic Big Trouble in Little China. However, he also had a he was an outspoken figure across various communities, such as being a member of the SAG National Board of Directors for more than 10 years, and had a role on the AFTRA National Board of Directors. Additionally, he served on the Television Academy Board of Governors, the Actors Branch Executive Committee of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. And lastly, he was a very vocal and outspoken voice against anti-Asian stereotyping seen in the industry. He passed away, unfortunately, on this past Tuesday night in his sleep, and he was 73. So, Spills, your thoughts on the passing of Peter Kwong?
Obviously, again, as a young man of my age,
Yes,
Big Trouble Little China is like, you know,
right,
it's up there. That's like top five, ladies and gentlemen.
right,
That's top five.
right.
And his character was so hot. They made a whole video game franchise based on his character. No, he was the sword one. He wasn't the lightning one.
Well, I
What
would
was he?
say
The
out of
lightning
that
one?
trio, just out of that trio, whether we're talking about, what is it,
Mortal Kombat.
Lightning, whether we're talking
Hmm.
about the character of Lightning, Thunder, or Rain, um,
Hmm.
they just together that trio helped to inspire the character of Raiden in Mortal Kombat. But I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, but just obviously, I didn't know that he did all of that, like organizing stuff in
Yeah,
the
behind the
Actors Guilds
scenes.
and stuff. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
You don't know somebody that's incredible. Who would have known? That's incredible that he was able to, give back to the other actors because we got to work against this corporate machine so we can make these dollars.
for
But
sure.
yeah, for sure. That sad to see him go. But great actor. I really loved his stuff. What was your favorite of his roles?
Well, first and foremost, let me just say, I'll second what you said there about um, the legacy that he's had behind the scenes. Because oftentimes, you hear about all these iconic roles that a lot of these actors play, and that's great. But the fact that he had that type of presence and that type of impact behind the scenes with a lot of those guilds and organizations that play a role in ensuring that actors are able to um, you know vouch for themselves, properly vouch for themselves monetarily in terms of their rights, things like that. So that was great. And answering your question about my favorite role of his, a lot of people forget, and I'd be remiss to not mention this. He was also in Golden Child, so he does have a role in there that was memorable. But again, you can't go wrong with Big Trouble in Little China. I mean, those characters are that trio of villains, they're so iconic with that film. So I would be remiss not to mention that while I do like the film Golden Child, and I do vividly remember his character from that film. I have to go with Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh yeah, for sure. But again, condolences to his family, and you know, That was a great contribution to everybody. I feel like he was looking out for everybody. So
For sure, for
yeah.
sure, for sure. But last but not least, we did have one other passing that did happen over this said week, and that was, of course, with Loretta Swit, who passed just just after midnight on Friday from natural causes, per a police report shared by her publicist Harlan Bowl. Known largely, of course, from her iconic role as Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan on the acclaimed CBS sitcom MASH. Swit was also an animal activist and a consistent presence on the stage in the theater world as well, with roles such as being one of the Daffy Pigeon sisters during the LA run of Neil Simon's The Odd Couple, that also starred Don Rickles and Ernest Borgnine as the ill match roommates. Loretta Swit was 87. So Spillman, your thoughts on the passing of Loretta Swit?
I was not the biggest MASH fan, so this is, I'm sure huge to the MASH fans out there. I don't know if you were either. I feel like MASH is a show
It
that was
was
just
before
not
my
for
time.
us. It's
It
just not
was
for
before my
us.
time, but I will say that it was in syndication all the time
Hmm.
growing up. So I did go back and have an opportunity to see a lot of those episodes growing up, and she was a memorable part of it. So
Hmm.
yeah, it is that, as you said, it was definitely before my time, but fortunate enough where it was heavily in syndication, so it came on TV all the time.
I wonder what our kids' MASH will be. What show will they be like? I don't want to watch that boring old show. We just always watch it.
I would say if it would be the next generation, it'll probably be, which is a bummer to say this because these shows are awesome, just as MASH is, and that would be, if we're talking about the sketch comedy. Well, no, not. I would say the sitcom Martin, but I don't know. I feel like Martin, they would still, if they watched it, they would still enjoy Martin. Um,
Yeah, but it's got to be something that's like, because MASH was like so dry. I imagine it might be something like The Office, where like The
yeah, it
Office,
might be
it
The
like
Office.
goes for so long, and
Yeah,
then
it
like
might
our
be The
kids like, what are
Office
y'all
because I
doing with
love The
this? The
Office,
Office.
but it is a certain type of humor. So
Yeah,
yeah, it might be The Office because it's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. You have moments here and there that are very, uh, very much a screwball type of comedy and a lot of physical comedy. But there's a lot of it where it's up here, where
it's
it's
yeah.
sarcasm and
It's like
and
I don't
and
get like little kids like I don't get why this is funny. It's like, well, we gotta
right.
explain.
And I'm
Yeah,
like, give
yeah,
it time, give it time,
hmm
or you have to live a little bit more to really
yeah.
understand why this is funny. Um, you have to get some more life experiences under you in order to understand why this is funny. Because don't get me wrong, there's some comedies as well as some films that now being far more distinguished. I like to feel a little older.
Yeah.
That I have a better appreciation for because you have more life experience. When you were watching it when you were a teenager or maybe in middle school, some of those things were going over your head because you were like, okay, I don't get why that is a big deal, or why that's funny, or why that has as much impact as it does. But as you get older and you have far more life experience, you appreciate it a lot more. Like, wow, I didn't catch that the first time around watching that 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So um, but yeah, as I said, so many talented folks that left us over the past week. Again, talking about Peter David, Peter Kwong, as well as Loretta Swit. For those of you out there, let us know below in the comments if there are uh, uh, any or all of them in terms of projects that they have in their filmography that you most remember them for. Maybe you have an experience that you wanted to share, that you had with them, because I know, like Loretta Swift, for example, towards the tail end of her career, these last couple of years before her passing, she was doing a lot of Comic Con. She was actually on Comic Con circuits, and the experience that I had, she was always great. The same goes for Kwong. He was at a lot of he was a part of that convention circuit too. And the minor times that I had in order to interact with him, he was also great. So as I said, unfortunately, I have them pass, but the legacies that they've left behind, are as we just went into are incredible. So, but that's gonna do it of what we had with our legacies remembered. As I mentioned before, let us know, in the comments what your thoughts are on, those said passings in the past week, and those things in which for those said artists that you most remember about them. We're now going to get into some lighter news as we go to the hardwood for our sports cooler talk segment, as we now have, as of yesterday, the matchup set now for our NBA Finals, that being the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I say this because the Pacers racked up their series with the Knicks just last night in Game 6 with a score of 125 to 108. Now that the Pacers have wrapped up their time or their matchup against the Knicks, they will now have to contend with arguably the best team in the NBA, as well as the league MVP in the form of Oklahoma City Thunder uh, guard Shea Gilgeous Alexander, as well as their team, of course, who boasts the most effective defense in the league. Game 1 of the finals is set to commence on Thursday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, only on ABC. Spills, your thoughts on the Pacers punching their ticket to the finals, and what are your thoughts on the matchup that we have? If you want to give us a preview of who you feel will win that matchup.
I'm muted. I feel like this is another bigger guard situation. I feel like Shay's the bigger guard, so I'm gonna go with Shay. Although I would like, yeah, my homeboy Ian, he's a huge Pacers fan. I've been to more Pacers games than I care to admit, ladies and gentlemen. I did see, like, I went to one of those Pacers games one time, and I saw Russell Westbrook pass 22 assists one game. That was pretty impressive. He was looking like a young Skip to my Lou that game. It's very incredible, ladies and gentlemen. But I
Okay.
think that this Pacer team is a great team. I just feel like the players on the Pacers are the lesser versions of the players on the Thunder, and they just kind of all match up in that way. Um, if you had the option of Chet or Miles Turner, you probably going to pick Chet.
Hmm.
If you had the option of Halliburton or Shea, you're going to pick Shea because he's the MVP, obviously. But the Pacers definitely got shooters, but I feel like the Thunder got bodies. They got big bodies. So I don't know. I think we split for who we thought the teams were going to be.
Yeah, we did.
We split because I figured that the Pacers were going to beat the Knicks, but you thought you were for sure the Thunder were, and that was right. I had a pipe dream, ladies and gentlemen. I keep squinting my eyes to see that man looking like Michael Jordan. But then
but
I
but
remember
but I
when
will
Michael
give you
Jordan was
this.
23, he would lose all the time. Michael Jordan used to lose when he was young.
But I will give you this. You had the Pacers, and I did not have the
Yeah,
Pacers
I
making it
just
out
I
of that series. You had the
hey,
Pacers.
6'2"
So
dudes don't be going to the finals all the time, bro. They
so
be getting up out of there, ladies and gentlemen.
so I mean, what I'll say is this: congrats to a team that I don't feel anyone believe would get get this far. Let's be honest. However, know this Cinderella path that the Pacers have been able to accomplish in these NBA playoffs this season, it's going to come to an end in these finals. I can promise you that. There's not going to be a continuation of it all the way to the finish line of winning a title this year. Right now, as I said, congrats getting through, the first round, the semis, and the conference finals, but it's a wrap. It's a wrap. I'm sorry, with the finals. When you're talking about the defensive efficiency of the Thunder, as I said, they lead the league in so many different categories defensively. And we've talked about this before, Spills, whether we're talking about basketball, whether we're talking about football, defense is going to win you championships. While it's great to be able to have, high powered offenses, when it's all said and done, when you really have to get into into gritty games, the defense is going to be the one that wins those games for you because the offense is not going to always be there. So when we're talking about the defensive capabilities of the Thunder, and add to that the not only the versatility that they can equally match with the Pacers, as well as their depth, which they can equally match with the Pacers, if not more so. Um, and you also have that, of course, that little extra added X factor of having the league MVP doesn't hurt either. I can't see how the Pacers are going to be able to overcome that. I really don't. I saw in your. I'm going to pull it back up here. You said, "I'm gonna bring it down here." You have the Thunder
I had
in
Thunder in
6. You still
six.
have them winning 2 games. I don't know.
I got
I
to win
think
in 2 games. The Pacers are very
I
cagey
think
when
they're
it
going to
comes to
steal one
cutting
game. I have a
leads.
gentleman's sweep. I don't have it going 6 games though. I
No,
think
I
they
don't.
will
I don't
steal
put the
one game.
disrespect on them. I think that they are a decent team, and I think that they've been together for so long. And I feel like the thing is, if Siakam can get off, I think they can win because I don't really feel like there's a Thunder player that could really guard him, and the guys that are guarding him are younger guys. I think that that's the matchup that will be a win. I feel like Shea and Halliburton, that's a push, but I feel like Shea's going to overtop him. I feel like he's just got a better offensive game and he's better on defense, but I don't know. Like, Halliburton has done some crazy things this season.
He has. He has.
If he pulls it out, he will never have to buy a drink in the state of Indiana the rest of his life or a dinner. Or a dinner. He might not even have to pay for gas, ladies and gentlemen. I think that if he was to give these Pacers a
I'll give you that.
championship,
I'll give
I
you
feel
that.
like the Thunder are a good team and Oklahoma City is a good franchise, but they only been there like 15, 20 years. That hasn't been that long. The Pacers fans, those people are rabid down there. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see, but I just think that,
Hey, you've
the
proven me
Thunder
wrong
overpower 'em.
before, so I'm not gonna count you out. Maybe they will get 2 games, but personally, I'll put enough respect to say that they're going to win a game, and we can even say that they might be close games. Right? All the games will be close games.
I
None of them will
worry if
be
they're in close games. I would hope that the Thunder blow them out. If the Thunder win this, they will blow them out. If it's close games, I think the Pacers might outpace them.
okay. All right,
Because
I
they got
still have,
they got like so many shooters. Even though they were dropping like flies last night, they have so many shooters, ladies and gentlemen.
but
They have shooters
but
that
again,
boy,
like all these things that you are saying are strengths of the Pacers are also strengths of the Thunder. And on
yes.
top of that, they are the highest rated defense in the league. The only reason why I'm giving them having them losing at least one game is because I do feel with the age factor and the lack of experience that they will take their foot off the gas for one game. But I still also feel that they're hungry enough that they have everything rolling for them, whether we're talking about the what I talked about with their defense, and on top of having the league MVP. I know the last couple of times when we've talked about having a league MVP, they haven't been in the finals. Like when we're talking about the season MVP, they haven't been in the finals. Normally they get bounced by the time we get to the finals, and we have a different person in that position as the Finals MVP the last couple of years. So yeah, I definitely have the Pacers. As I said, mad respect to the Pacers for getting this far because no one had them getting this far, myself included. But I don't see them overcoming the behemoth that is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I don't see them getting 2 games out of it. I see them getting at least one game. So, um, But any last thoughts
I
before
just
we?
think I hear you, but I feel like they're the number one defense, but that's not counting their sixth or fifth defender. And the Pacers are sneaky in that that's who will go on the scoring spurts. It's like it wasn't Halliburton that brought them back in that game against the Knicks. It was like Neesmith. You and I did not know who Neesmith was for that game. I didn't know who he was. I looked up because I like Teresa called me, and I was like, I went downstairs and I was like looking at my phone. And I was like, oh my god, these guys about to win this game, and it was just like three, 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 and it was like we didn't have a game plan for that guy because we you can only game plan for so many people, you know, like
Yeah,
it's only so much you could do, and cha-ching. So we'll see. I think it'll be a good finals, but. The internet nerds are going to complain about the fact there's two small markets. We didn't talk about the fact there's two small markets, but
yeah.
this is what they want. You got to sell the brand. Sometimes it don't be New York and the Lakers or San Francisco and the Lakers. It's San Francisco and
Or the
yeah,
Celtics and the Lakers.
Celtics.
So,
Yeah,
but any, as I said,
that's it.
it is what it is. The teams that are here, the teams that are supposed to be here, because they have put in the effort and have in one case, as I said, proven so many naysayers wrong. So good on them. But that will do it for what we have with our sports cooler talk. Um, Moving on from sports, we're going to head over to our film and TV talk segment, one involving a revived comedy franchise, and the other involving a mega superhero franchise. So let me bring that up. So on Friday, it was announced by Universal Studios that Ariana Grande had been cast in Meet the Parents 4. According to a source at the Hollywood Reporter, Grande will play and I quote this from their article, a ball-busting woman who gets engaged to the son of Ben Stiller and Terry Apollo's respective characters. Meet the Parents 4 is set to hit theaters on November 25th. 2026. Spills, are you excited to revisit this franchise?
I am. For a second, I was like, wait, is this going to be his illegitimate son's fiance? But then I remembered that that was not actually his son.
Right,
And
right,
yeah, so I'm pretty excited for it. Meet the Fockers is a great franchise. Um, especially now that we're in that part of our lives where like you gotta meet people daddy sometimes, and you be like, hold up, her daddy is tripping, ladies and gentlemen.
right.
So, like, some of the cultural things that people do in their families, not
Sure,
everybody does that stuff.
sure, yeah,
You
sure,
know, some people are pro hazing. I'm not pro hazing, ladies and gentlemen. I don't
sure,
haze.
sure.
I will rib you, but I don't haze. Like I feel like some people just like, get that paddle out,
Right. No, I get you, man. I
initiate
get
you.
you.
So definitely. But Ariana Grande's printing money, ladies and gentlemen, for sure. She's printing money. I would love to be her accountant. Yeah, she
I'm
is.
sure. I'm sure. I'll say this. And I've talked about this before, right? When we're talking about sequels, it always concerns me when there's such a huge gap between certain installments, and I feel like 5 years, not too bad. 10 years, not too bad. But when you start getting on 15 years and above, I feel like you start getting into dangerous territory because the sensibilities of the very audience that perhaps enjoyed that film are at a different point of their lives. And now you also have to hope that your film is going to speak to new audience members, because when we're talking about 15 years, that means you have a whole other consumer base, right? With high schoolers that if the film is PG-13, you know, you potentially want to be able to get into those seats at the theater. So, despite that concern, though, it appears that the whole gang for the most part is back. According to the article, there are some folks that still need to have their deals finalized, but for the most part, it looks like a lot of people in front of the camera, cast wise, are coming back. Also behind the camera, according to the article, there are some there is some consistency there. So to give you some insight into that. The co-writer of the previous three films, John Hamburg, is set to direct this installment, and the director of the previous films, Jay Roach, is going to be coming on as producer. So while you have folks that are not specifically in those same roles that they had in the prior installments, they still are involved in some capacity, whether they've been promoted to a new role or whether they step back and provided a different role in this new feature. So
I have something on this. I have something. I feel like this is one of the times that I will let a 15-year gap like, it works because families don't be having weddings every you go through a flurry of weddings, then
yeah.
it'd be a pause. The people that you make at the weddings, then they have weddings. So
No,
because
I
the
get
people
it.
you make at the
Chronologically, it
weddings,
makes sense. I get
it
you.
makes sense. I feel like this is one of those ones where it's not an obnoxious amount of time. Like I feel like when we're talking about that, a lot of times we're talking about action franchises and stuff. It's like this
That's
60-year-old
true.
man would not scare us. We ain't gonna beat that old man up. Like we're not gonna be scared of Terminator 78. No, no, Terminator 78 is not gonna be scary to us. But like, a scary
So I'll give you
CIA
that.
grandfather. Also, I
Okay.
do think that we've been seeing them together a lot with these Knicks and Pacers games. I think that Timothy Chalamet is going to play his son. Is that in that article?
I mean, we haven't had that portion confirmed
All
as
right,
of
ladies and gentlemen,
yet.
this is the spill prediction. Prediction,
Okay.
prediction.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're gonna be able to afford Mr. Chalamet, but
He was sitting
okay.
next to him at Knicks Pacers. I feel like
I
as a
get you.
New
No,
Yorker,
I love the theory. I love
I
the
feel
theory.
like
You heard it here first.
you heard it here
If you end
first,
up
ladies and
being
gentlemen.
right,
They
if you
got
end
the
up
same
being right.
yeah. I think so.
I like that theory though, but
Yeah, I think so.
I guess what I'll say is I like what you're mentioning here. There is a valid reason chronologically why it would be 15 years later. So I do like that part of it because sometimes when we're talking about 15 years later of a new installment, it's like, do we really need to tell this story? Is this really necessary 15 years later? Do we really need to revisit these characters? But based off of where they left it with the prior installment, with them having young kids, and now 15 years later, they would logically be adults and now be at that point in their lives where they're getting married. That makes sense. I guess my only thing is when we're talking about different genres, right? There's certain genres where it can be tricky for it to be effective after a certain number of years. And comedy is one of those where I feel like sometimes when things are funny at one time, they're not funny at another time. Like you're in a different
I don't
time,
know,
it,
man.
space
Taking
and time.
a bus and running it through some septic juices on a family will always be funny. I don't care what you say.
No, I get you. There's
I
some
don't
things
care.
that are universally funny, but I feel like sometimes because a film hits at a certain point in
Yeah,
time, that
yeah.
everything kind of comes together where it makes it funny, and then sometimes that same said thing isn't funny anymore. People don't really respond to it anymore. So, and as I said, you're now bringing in brand new potential viewers now and audiences with it being 15 years later. You're getting that entire high school market now of potential viewers that would be coming to see this film, and a lot of those, I'm sure the studios would want in order to be able to generate the box office that they want for this installment. So uh but like I said, I feel 15 is like really
No,
right
it's
there on the
pushing it for
cusp.
sure because De
It's right
Niro's
there
going
on
to
the
be like,
cusp. When it's
he's
20
going to
years,
be.
it's ridiculous. But 15, I feel like you're really right there on the edge. But we'll see. We'll see. Um but based off of what you said with the story itself, they have a shot at having it, work. Because
I think so.
it could be cool, because this is another thing when we're talking about 15 years later. How are you going to make it fresh? It would be a new angle to finally have the father-in-law and the son-in-law actually working in tandem together. All this time they've been at odds with each other, and
Yeah.
finally they're going to have to work together as a team to figure out, okay, do we really want to have this daughter-in-law? Like, what's her deal? Like,
What's her
do
deal?
you know? And they have to kind of
What if
put
she has
aside.
a link in the bio or
And
something?
I
It's
can
like,
see it in the
wait.
trailer. I can see it in the
Yeah.
trailer where they have that moment like, listen, and they have like all of these snippets of different moments throughout all the installments where they've always like been at the yard. Just like, we're going to have to put aside our differences. I can see that, like them having that moment in the trailer. I'm like, okay, all right, let's go.
I'm saying, you see
Okay,
what I'm
let's
saying?
go.
This is,
Let's
it's
go.
like, it's
Okay.
like how it worked. It worked for Creed because chronologically, they wasn't saying Rocky gonna fight nobody because that fourth Rocky movie where he was fighting people, he was real old. That looked silly. That's not how it works in real life. You don't come back as an old man and fight, but you do train somebody, and he be fighting
And look,
people.
look, they have that other moment, right, where he's like, I don't know if this is going to work, man. He's like, what do you mean? It worked on you. Like, that strategy worked on you. And he's like, he's probably going to be like, fair point, fair
Fair
point.
point. Yeah. So definitely,
So
I
yeah,
feel like this is
maybe,
going to be good. And
maybe.
also, they got Ariana Grande for this movie. Like, if they got
Yeah,
Ariana Grande, they got Timothy Chalamet money. I feel like Ariana make more money than he do, low key. I think she does. She got an Oscar. She way more famous than Timothy Chalamet. Sure,
ew, I think they're on
sure,
par. I think they're on par.
sure. I feel like he is
He's on
like
par because
DiCaprio in '95 right
as
now. He's like
he's
DiCaprio in
just
'95.
he's just as recognized in terms of his acting and
Yeah,
nominations that he's received. So I wouldn't go that far. I would say they're about on par. Um, but I do get what you're saying. I do like your theory of him being the son. That would be an interesting angle. So we'll see. I like your theory. We'll see what happens with it. But yeah, I'm gonna give you we. You will get credit for it, sir, and I will make sure I blast it out there
that's right.
if it turns out to be true that it was heard here first. But as I said, there was another part of our film and TV talk, so I wanted to get into that as well. As you can also see here, we have Kevin Feige here, who of course is in charge of Marvel Studios, a very studio or company that makes all the MCU films that we know and love. However, in the last couple of years, a lot of them have been very mid. But with that being said, it was confirmed that that Marvel Studios would not be making an appearance at the upcoming San Diego Comic Con that's happening next month. It's crazy to believe that we're already here, almost in July, folks. But yes, confirmed by Deadline, they won't be making an appearance in Hall H this year. And it said that Marvel Studios' decision to push their upcoming appearance um, at San Diego Comic Con is also due to their decision to delay the upcoming Avengers film known as Avengers Doomsday by a year to December 2026. So, Spills, your thoughts on this news of Marvel Studios not making their appearance for programming in Hall H at Comic Con?
That's not surprising. I feel like that's what they've been doing. They don't want to give other people their stash. They're like, no, we're gonna do this on a Disney Plus Con day or whatever they're gonna make with it. Um, the rich get richer. The mouse said, no, Marvel, you will not put money in the pockets of those people that you know basically made us cool. We're not going to do that at all. We're going to put money in our own pocket, make people go to Disney World to see us. So they have to pay twice.
Well, I don't know. I'll say this. I feel like while it is a bummer to not have Marvel Studios make an appearance in Hall H at Comic Con next month, it does provide a big window of opportunity for all those other Sid studios that are coming to Comic Con this coming month. As I said, next month. I mean, you have some other studios out there. Whether we're talking about what is it, Universal, with the slate of films that they have, and a couple of others, and we also have another small little studio known as DC Studios that has will be fresh off of their Superman film that comes out in the beginning of July. So there would be an opportunity for them to really be able to make a splash at this year's Comic Con, because the last time that we had news about the slate of films for DC Studios, which is essentially uh, the company that's putting together all the DC superhero related films. There was an idea that there were a slate of films, whether it was for TV or streaming, what have you, as well as on the big screen, that would be um, making their way available in either case for us fans and viewers. And in that time since, it's kind of gotten a little jarbled, where some films have been canceled, some films have been delayed. And so this provides an opportunity for DC to be able to really reset things and to reset expectations, and to be able to provide updates on a lot of those said projects, and where things stand with those said projects, and if we might be getting new projects that they haven't even discussed yet. So I really feel like this is more so than any other studio. While it would be nice for other studios to kind of come out of Comic Con with some dark horses that are surprises, where it's like, wow, this looks pretty good. I do really feel that it is DC Studios' opportunity to really make a splash, and to not only reset where they stand in terms of the slate of projects that they have, but to also really make a splash, with new announcements, whether it's casting announcements or even stuff that they're going to show us. But I'll punt it over to you, Spills. Your final thoughts before we move on.
Um, yeah, sure, that sounds cool, but I don't think DC can make a universe. They're not good at doing that. But we'll see.
Well, I will say this, Spills. I agree with you when we're talking about the previous iteration of the DC universe, but they did pull over someone from the Marvel house to help them get their DC universe off the ground. So, we
Yeah, that's what
might
they
be
always
in
do.
different territory. So we might very well be in different territory this go around. But what do you guys think out there? Let us know in the comments if there are. What are your thoughts on Ariana Grande being a part of the upcoming Meet the Parents? Do you feel like it's too late to do a new Meet the Parents? And for those of you that are regular San Diego Comic Con goers like myself, what are your thoughts on not having Marvel Studios appear this year? It's happened before. There have been times where they have skipped out on Comic Con, so it's not unprecedented. But um, it does, as I said, provide an opportunity for some of the other studios to be able to show what they have going on in their said world of projects. So, but now we're going to moving on from film and TV. We're now going to dive into some trailers, as we did have, and this is for our segment known as Trailer Alley. There were two trailers that dropped yesterday from Netflix, one being a hotly anticipated film, the other being a hotly anticipated wrap up of one of its most iconic shows. We're going to start first with a little film known as Frankenstein, and it's being directed by Oscar-winning director Guillermo del Toro. And if the trailer is anything to go by, it promises tons of atmosphere and dread with the classic story of a creator and his monstrous creation. Starring Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, the film also stars Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, Felix Kammerer, Charles Dance, and Christoph Waltz. The film is set to be unleashed on Netflix this November. Spills, your thoughts on Frankenstein?
This is an interesting time to have a Frankenstein movie come out. You may have seen, friends, that weird video of the robot in China flailing its arms around like it's alive. Very scary stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Right at this time, we're trying to make animate what is inanimate, and that's playing with the power that we do not possess, ladies and gentlemen. We don't possess the power to make things become alive. So, this is a great movie. Oscar Isaacs looks cool as heck, as a real big dude. That looks like a great Halloween costume. The Frankenstein like cowl thing. That thing looks the monster cowl, because that Frankenstein, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if you know, but just a literary great story. Mary Shelley, shout out to you. You wrote it in a writing contest one time, and absolutely destroyed everyone. She destroyed the guy that wrote Dracula with this story, ladies and gentlemen. That's incredible. The written word is a beautiful thing.
So, I mean, let me say this first: is that I feel like it's a shame that Guillermo del Toro is getting this release on a streaming instead of the big screen. If anything, I would say it's even disrespectful. Only reason why I'm saying this is because considering someone of his pedigree, time and time again, he has shown audiences how much of an auteur he is, and how his films should truly be appreciated on the big screen. I mean, I can go down the list of the films that he's done, whether we're talking about The Devil's Backbone, whether we're talking about Mimic. He's directed arguably one of the best superhero sequels with Blade 2. If we're also talking about The Shape of Water, which again, as I mentioned before, he ended up getting the Oscar for. When we're talking about his pedigree, especially when we're talking about his pedigree in this genre, in the horror genre, in science fiction, in fantasy, um, he has few equals. And so, with that said, when we're talking about the impressive cast that you have, as I said, talked about Isaac, we talked about Christoph Waltz, we talked about Dance and Goth, and I mean the list goes on and on. And then also to have him at the helm directing this project, I'm definitely excited to see it. But unfortunately, I wish that we would be able to enjoy it on the big screen. But if there was no other way to enjoy it, and I was forced to have it on streaming, so be it. But I do feel like it should be a project that should be enjoyed on the big screen, because when it comes to Del Toro and the detail that he puts into many of his films, especially as I said, genre films such as these, there are few out there that are able to match the level of detail that he provides to telling those stories and creating those worlds of each of his films. So we'll see, but I'm definitely excited to check it out. Um, but as I said just moments ago, switching off of Frankenstein here. Just moments ago, I had talked about another project that had a trailer that was shown just yesterday, and that is, of course, with Stranger Things 5. And while the teaser does provide a look at I like to call them the Scooby Gang, as well as 11, as they have their last confrontation against Vecna and the plane of existence known as the Upside Down, it also highlights, as most finales do, be they films or series, all the challenges, triumphs that our characters have had up to this point. As highlighted in the teaser, Volume 1 of Stranger Things 5 drops on November 26th, while Volumes 2 and 3 drop on Christmas and New Year's Eve, respectively. Spillman, are you excited to see how Stranger Things will wrap up?
So I think I'm going to check in on Stranger Things again. I started it a little bit back when it started, but then I got too much stuff going on, so I
Hmm.
had to go back to it. But I think that they look good. Officially, I feel like we want this to be in, like we wanted the last one to be in theaters, and this is showing like Netflix runs the world. I feel like Netflix is the king of the mountain right now. All time blunders. But Blockbuster, not just buying these people. Wow,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
just wow. But yeah, this looks great. It looks great. The cinematography and um, the cut scenes and everything look amazing. I'm really interested in this. It's good that they're ending it because them kids ain't getting no younger, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's
Right.
just going to
No,
be things after a while because the stranger is more for children than for adults. As an adult, you don't really think of people as strangers. You just think of them as people. But because you're a child, strangers are everyone. So I
I
don't know.
will. I will give you this, but I will contrast it by saying that if you do take a look at season one, there is an element of it where you would feel that it's right there on the cusp of being for adults and young adults. However, as the seasons continue, it does just in a way that you would have with something like Harry Potter. It gets far more mature and it gets far more adult in terms of the things that occur, in those said seasons. And I am excited to see where it goes because the last couple of seasons have been, stellar, and that's always the unfortunate curse when you're talking about something that has had terrific seasons and has a good momentum going. Can it close the deal? Can it effectively wrap up character arcs right? Can it truly wrap up the story in an epic and satisfying way? And I hope that it's able to do that because as I said, the last couple of seasons have been stellar, and it would be such a letdown if they're not able to match what they were able to accomplish in season 3 and season 4 with this last and final season. Um, there are some elements in there that I am looking forward to how it is utilized because there are some other surprises in there, which we already know. So this isn't a spoiler, but you have Linda Hamilton, who's going to be in this last season. They didn't really show her in the teaser, but she is going to be in the show. So I will be interested to see how they utilize her because she's such an iconic actress, right? She's so easily recognizable from Terminator, that Terminator franchise, and so much of what Stranger Things has been it has been a callback to different decades, but it has also been a love letter to a lot of genre franchises. Whether we're talking about the Terminator franchise, whether we're talking about what am I? I'm brain farting it right now, but the with the kids, you can arguably say with it, there are elements of it that it borrows from, but the Goonies, the
Hmm.
Goonies, it takes, obviously takes huge inspiration from. So, and a lot of times they've had actors from uh, a lot of those said franchises that it's inspired from appear in different seasons of the show in kind of like a meta way of trying to show appreciation of those said actors by having them appear in different seasons. So in the same way that we're going to get Linda Hamilton in this last and final season, right? But yeah, I just hope that they're able to close it in a satisfying way because I've been burned before where we've had some shows where they've had
Game of Thrones.
terrific seasons, and they're just not able to make it there to the finish line in a good way. So we will see. We will see indeed. But what about you guys out there? How do you guys feel about Frankenstein? The trailer that was shown, as well as Stranger Things. Are you excited for either project or maybe both projects? You could let us know there in the comments. But we're going to move on to our last topic today, and talking about a certain little pharmacy chain that is closing some of the stores, which you could, see here in the background. But to be more specific, we of course are talking about CVS, and this is in a story from Fox 5 News on Thursday. It was revealed that CVS would be closing some of its stores in the DC metropolitan area. Some of the stores that are listed include 1117 10th Street Northwest, 1100 4th Street Southwest, 400 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, 1515 New York Avenue Northeast, 4500 Wisconsin Avenue Northwest, 7828 Georgia Avenue Northwest for Maryland. Their location that is on Federal Hill, more specifically, 1000 South Charles Street. The one that they have in Bethesda on Wisconsin Avenue, 7235 Wisconsin Avenue. The one in Hagerstown, which will be closing the end of this month, which is on Cannon Avenue, as well as the one that they have in Fairfax over on Willard Way. The reason provided for this decision of these closures, as well as others across the nation, according to a CVS spokesperson, the decisions are based on several factors for the chain, including population shifts, consumer buying patterns, store and pharmacy density, and community health needs. Spills, your thoughts on CVS closing some of its DC Metro locations, and do you buy the reasoning behind the chain closing some of its stores?
I think that they're valid in closing the stores that they're closing. Having been to a lot of them, I feel like these are the stores that are lesser than. They're the stores that don't get as much traffic, or there's like a new store and like a newer, fancier development. Like case in point, that one on Fourth Street.
Hmm.
They put one down at the new Wharf complex. So it's like, why do you need one that's 3 blocks away from one? That's too many.
Yeah.
So I get it. I think they're doing good. There were some issues in the beginning of the pandemic where they were talking about people stealing, but I feel
Yeah.
like that was a false flag, because they were not staffing those places. Also, I feel like if you were going to staff somewhere, you could
Right.
staff somewhere. And I also feel like they moved a lot of them away from metro stations, which is interesting. Which is a little interesting, ladies and gentlemen.
It
Um,
is. It is. So I'm glad that you brought each of those up spills, because I have some thoughts as well. And I guess what I'll say is while all these reasons provided that I named off seem very logical and valid, I think there's a bit more at play. Like 7-Eleven, CVS has dealt with issues, as you just said, of theft at a lot of their stores. So I feel that is also undeniably playing into that decision. I don't feel like they're actually going to say it, as their actual statement, but I feel like that has played a role in that decision. But I also believe, kind of similar to what you mentioned before, that it's also decreasing the chain. They're decreasing their stores for another reason, and that's just as you said. There are a lot of CVSs, and you'd be remiss not. It's kind of like with Starbucks or with some other chain stores. You'd be remiss not to find a CVS at almost every couple of blocks. And I feel like because of that, because there's so many CVSs, there is less of an urgency, I feel, out of consumers to actually go to CVS to get their products, because I feel like, in some cases, it's taken for granted that there are so many CVSs available, nearby. Um, and but I feel like by reducing the number of store locations, it will in turn increase the urgency for those that actually go to those said stores. If you don't have that CVS there, you know, unfortunately, to get that said prescription, and you have to go a mile or two in order to get to that CVS, you know, there's going to be a higher urgency to go to that specific CVS, which as a result, you're going to get more foot traffic there because there are fewer CVSs, which, by the way, since they sell other products, it allows them to also get more products purchased from that said CVS, which, by the way, also allows them to charge a little bit more for those said products because people want to just buy it there because they're not going to be willing, once they're at the CVS, to have to go somewhere else to get another product that they may need, whether it's a food product or a cleaning product or, you know, a toiletry, anything like that. Even if it is a little bit more, just because it's conveniently there while they're getting something else, getting their prescription, you know, taking care of another service that CVS does, they're going to buy it there, which ergo is going to result in more business and is going to help their bottom line because if you don't have as many stores, then that means that you're not going to have as many locations to kind of keep up store wise, and that allows you to put, you know, more revenue in your pocket. It is what it is, but I feel like it's a combination of both. I feel like because there's so many, they need to reduce it down so they can make a profit. But I feel like the theft part has played a role in that too, trend
Don't
wise.
fall for that though. It's not the theft. They was downsizing because they weren't getting us enough foot traffic. It's just these stores. It's like that. You ever seen that game on the internet where they have like all the magnets and you got to put them down, and if they get too close, they touch. That's
Yeah,
essentially what's happening. These magnets are too close and they're within each other's fields. It's like, you know, everything in CVS is insured, but you know, if people are stealing, there's methods that they need to do to keep their store up. If they want to keep it, if they don't want to keep it, this is just insurance money. But you know, I need to put on my sunglasses like I am the conspiracy grocer.
right, right. But what about you guys out there? If you are near, you know, some of those CVS locations, are you bummed to see them go, or maybe it doesn't matter to you one way or another because you have other options, whether there are grocery stores or other places that you can go to as an alternative? You can let us know in the comments. But that is going to do it for this week in pop culture. I want to thank those of you that have been watching live so much for watching, and also know that a lot of what we have on the show, as soon as the show is wrapped, each episode, we I make an effort to timestamp what we have for each of those topics. So if you want to skip forward to any given topic, if you're watching this after the fact, after it's gone live, that you can do so just down below by clicking below in the description to get those said time stamped moments to skip to a certain topic. But I'm gonna punt over to Spills. Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me on Instagram at Truly Spill. I'm there, you know, telling the good works. So please check us out and don't forget to give us 5 stars.
Absolutely, absolutely. So once again, I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X and Brandon Choi underscore ENT on Instagram. Um, as I mentioned before, we do have some things that are coming up, so I will keep you wind of it. We do have a couple of shows that are coming up this summer, which we will be doing episode breakdowns of. So stay tuned to that. I'm super excited to be able to get into those. But with that out of the way, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see y'all soon. Peace.